All right, welcome to this new video. Today we are going to continue on with painting the nose. Now you might remember from last time that we finished out this eye and then we laid in the nose. We did essentially a glorified underpainting so that we could have a nice surface here for our paint to stick to. I did not add any medium, I did not add any solvent to this. It was just the paint at the consistency it came from the tube. It's relatively thin and that means it's going to be dry after a day or two. So let's go ahead and rebuild this color. Let's get some Cad Orange on there. I'm wiping my brush clean so it's not too wet. Some raw umber and some white. Now that's way too neutral and gray, so let's go ahead and grab a little bit more of the color here. Cad Orange and yellow ochre, and then let's add a little bit more of this raw umber. Now, let's look at that and think, how is this going to look when we lay it down? I think it's going to match pretty close, but I could be wrong. It might be a little dark. Let's go ahead and lay it down. I'm going to go ahead and predict it's going to be a little too dark. Yep, sure enough, and that's what happened last time when we went back and remixed the brows. So let's go ahead, make it a little lighter, and that matches very, very close. So I feel confident that right now this mixture that I've prepared is essentially what I had on the palette before, and I can now use that and build out of it and keep a certain level of consistency with my previous rendering of that nose. Okay, so a few things I want to touch on here. One is you want to look at this turn right here as being probably the most substantial curve in this portion of the nose. The form really turns quite a bit. The radius of this turn is substantial. However, the orientation to the light between this side and this side, those two areas, it isn't that great. So the value change isn't substantial. Now when you get to this edge here, things start to accelerate because the orientation change in space between this facing out here and that far side of the nose, that's quite a bit. So you get a real acceleration and we get this compressed, narrow gradation there. Now this essentially is the structural counterpart to this. This is the same radius of turn, roughly, as this right here, yet we portray them very differently because of the orientation to the light source. Now you have to stay on the form in the same way, meaning your experience of this one right here, the one that is more compressed, has fewer value changes, the experience of making it needs to somehow feel the same in your mind as the experience of making the other one that has that compressed, more dramatic gradation. And by compressed in that regard, I mean narrow, so that gradation happens in a very skinny area. So visually, two different things. They look different because of the orientation and cut of the light to the form. But in your head, how it should feel as you simulate the experience of sculpting should be the same. Cylinder-like form again. Go along here, really feel that form. The light's coming in here, the angle of its incidence equals its angle of reflection out to us. The light is coming in most directly at that orientation. We're looking most directly here. So about halfway between those 2 points is where it glances off the surface and we have that specular reflection. It's not at the light most facing point. It is at the angle of incidence equals angle of reflection, and that happens to be down this bridge of the nose. How is that bridge of the nose shaped? How would you sculpt her form there? Let the highlight sit on that three-dimensional concept of how that form is shaped. All right, there we go. So I've established this value here leading up to the shadow edge and into the shadow edge. So now let's really kind of model around into that. You can see I have a beginnings of a gradation there. We've put that in, and my form just doesn't fully snap down around into it. So that's what we have to do next. We're going to have this nice dark value, and we're going to go in there and carve out those nostril holes up underneath, very three-dimensional, underneath that wing of the nostril. That's how I feel like I'm placing this. Not a flat shape. I'm pushing up the form underneath that wing of the nostril. And you can see the angle changes to my brushstroke betray the fact that I'm thinking very sculpturally as I do this. All All right, there's a little bit of highlight that kind of runs around this ball of the nose. Glancing slightly off the surface, parts of the surface as we go around here, and catches a little bit of the top of that far nostril wing right there. And there's some highlight here that catches on the cheek and side plane of the nose right there. Thank you so much for checking out this video. If you like my content, make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and if you want to help my channel grow, tell a friend. I'd really appreciate it. It will certainly lead me to making more content like this that I hope all of you find useful. So again, thanks so much, and I will see you next time.